The first thing the Karth Dominion delegation noticed about the human envoy wasn't the immaculate black suit or the harmless smile. It was the way his eyes didn't blink when the casualty figures were read. That was the moment the room temperature dropped 20 degrees, though the thermostat swore otherwise. The galaxy didn't care when the first human colony burned. Or the second. By the 12th, the news feeds barely bothered to mention it between celebrity scandal updates. What the galaxy did notice was when Earth sent one man in response. Not a fleet. Not a war declaration. Just a passenger shuttle carrying a single human with a black duffel bag and a polite smile. His name, whispered in classified reports and warlord nightmares, was the Reaper. The shuttle descended through the purple haze of Virus Prime, capital world of the Coalition. The place looked like a glass chandelier someone had dropped from orbit. Towers in fractured crystal shapes, streets carved from polished quartz, sunlight scattering into 100 shimmering colors. Inside the docking concourse, a tall, pale-skinned alien with fan-like gill crests shifted nervously. This was Envoy Trassic, tasked with greeting Earth's representative. He'd been given 2 orders. Be polite and do not, under any circumstance, provoke the human. The Reaper stepped off the shuttle wearing a charcoal suit, tie slightly loosened, hair just neat enough to suggest he'd made an effort but not enough to show he cared. His eyes scanned the concourse the way a mechanic might check a worn engine. Calm, methodical, already noting the weak points. "Envoy Trassic, I presume?" he said in perfect Coalition standard, tone warm, like he was asking about the weather. "Yes, representative." Trassic hesitated. "Forgive me, but your credentials list only a code name?" The Reaper smiled. It was small, easy, and somehow made Trassic's gill crests tighten. "Names are overrated," he said. "Call me John." On the ride into the city, Trassic attempted polite small talk. Humans, he'd been briefed, loved small talk. "We are deeply regretful about the incidents involving your colonies," Trassic said, voice careful as a glassblower's hands. "Truly unfortunate events, yes. But the Coalition is committed to peace." "That's good," John said, watching the passing skyline. "Peace is cheaper. War gets messy." The words weren't sharp, but they hung in the air like the smell of ozone before a storm. The Coalition Senate chamber was a half-moon of stone and crystal, filled with representatives from 50 worlds. They looked down from their raised seats as the human entered. One man, no guards, no entourage. The Senate Speaker, a scaled dignitary whose eyes moved independently, began with the formalities. "Representative of Earth, you are granted the floor. You may present your concerns." John adjusted the microphone as if testing it for an open mic night. 12 colonies, he said, voice steady. 12 civilian populations reduced to ash. You called it a misunderstanding. A senator with shimmering silver skin replied, "Our investigation found no direct coalition order for such actions. Rogue fleets." John raised a hand, and somehow, the entire chamber went quiet. "I'm not here to argue about orders. I'm here to discuss responsibility." He paced slowly, hands in his pockets. "You see, humans, we have a thing about family. You hit one of us, we get upset. You hit 12. He let the sentence dangle. "We don't do well with math that big." The chamber rippled with uneasy murmurs. "You think we came here for justice?" John asked, leaning forward just slightly. "Justice is slow, bureaucratic, full of paperwork. I'm here for something faster." A nervous senator spoke up. "Are you threatening the Coalition?" John smiled again, polite, faintly apologetic, like he was about to borrow your lawnmower and not return it. No, I don't make threats." He leaned on the podium. "I make promises." The speaker shifted uncomfortably. "And what exactly is your promise?" John's eyes swept the chamber, lingering just a fraction too long on each senator, as if memorizing their faces. "That by the time I leave, every name behind those attacks will be absent from your payroll. Permanently." In the back, a small reptilian aide whispered to her colleague, "He can't mean." John turned his head, voice still warm. "Oh, I mean exactly that." Gasps. The coalition chamber hadn't been this quiet since the scorned Nebula Massacre hearings. The speaker tried to regain control. "Earth's request for reparations will be reviewed." John cut in, still smiling. "Oh, no need. Keep your credits. I'll take payment in a different currency." He tapped the side of his temple. "Information. Ships. Access codes. Every coalition port, every fleet movement logged in the last year." "That is impossible," a senator started. "Impossible?" John shrugged. "That's fine. I'll just find the people who can make it possible. And when I'm done," his voice softened until the room leaned in to hear, "I'll leave you in peace. A real peace. The kind you don't break twice." After the session, Trassic caught up with him in the corridor. "Do you always speak to foreign governments that way?" John adjusted his tie. "Only when they kill 12 of our colonies." Trassic hesitated, then asked, "And if they refuse your requests?" John stopped, his reflection caught in a wall of polished crystal. "They won't," he said. Then, after a pause, "But if they do, I'll have to get creative." By the time John reached his assigned quarters, the coalition media had already lit up with speculation. Who is the Reaper? Earth's strange envoy issues chilling promise. Coalition leaders stunned by human demand. John set his duffel on the bed and unzipped it. Inside was no paperwork, no diplomatic robes, just a neatly folded black coat, a worn notebook, and a matte black sidearm. He took out the notebook, flipped to a blank page, and wrote the date at the top. Then he began a list. 12 colony names first. Then, one by one, he started adding the names of the coalition officials he'd just met. Some would help him. Some wouldn't. He didn't much care which. Outside, Virus Prime's twin moons rose over the jeweled skyline. The Reaper sat in silence, pen tapping the paper, as if listening to some far-off clock counting down. Somewhere in the city, someone who thought they were untouchable just made the mistake of coming into his crosshairs. And when he moved, there'd be no warnings. Only promises, kept. The midnight resolve drifted into the scorched graveyard of what used to be Haven's Reach. The planet hung below, its surface cracked like dry clay, the glassy sheen of vitrified cities glinting in the dim starlight. Captain Rhys Calder stood at the forward viewport, coffee mug in one hand, his other hand lazily tucked into his coat pocket. His posture was relaxed, too relaxed for someone staring at 12 burned colonies worth of ashes. "They didn't even bother to loot," Lieutenant Kira muttered, scanning the orbital debris. "They just killed and left." "Efficiency," Rhys said, sipping. "You've got to admire the work ethic of genocidal maniacs." Kira shot him a look. "Sir." Rhys's eyes stayed on the viewport. "We're here to make them regret it, Lieutenant. Not to moralize." The alien delegation from the Ja'ari Empire arrived 2 hours later. Their flagship, a shimmering, curved dagger of silver and obsidian, docked with the midnight resolve. The Ja'ari were a tall, insectoid race, chitin polished to a mirror sheen, voices clicking like wind through broken glass. They entered the conference chamber with all the elegance of predators who'd never been challenged in their own territory. The lead envoy, Ambassador Threx, extended a four-clawed hand. "Human Calder, you arrived to survey the ruins of your people? Tragic. Yet inevitable. The galaxy has little room for the weak." Rhys shook the clawed hand gently, smiling like a man greeting an old neighbor who'd borrowed his lawnmower and never returned it. "Ambassador," Rhys said smoothly, "I've been told you're the one who ordered the glassing." Threx tilted his head, mandibles flexing in something close to a grin. "An unpleasant necessity. Your colonies encroached upon Ja'ari space. The Council agreed they must be removed." Rhys nodded slowly, setting his coffee on the table. "Ah, see, here's where we're having a cultural misunderstanding. Where I'm from, if someone kills your people, burns your homes, and brags about it, we call that picking a fight. You think this was Personal? Threx's voice held amusement. Oh no, Rhys said, still smiling. I think you've made it personal. Kira shifted uncomfortably beside him. She'd seen Rhys play this game before, the one where he stayed pleasant while casually pushing his opponent toward the cliff edge. Rhys leaned back in his chair. Ambassador, in your culture, what happens when someone challenges the honor of a warrior clan? Threx puffed his thorax. The challenge is met in full force. Interesting, Rhys said, sliding a small device across the table. It was a polished steel cylinder, unassuming except for the faint hum it emitted. That's a beacon. The moment I press it, every warship in the Sol Defense Fleet will get our coordinates. Threx's mandibles twitched. You would risk open war? Rhys's smile didn't waver. You glassed 12 colonies. This is me being polite. The room chilled. Even the Jari guards shifted, uncertain. Threx tried to recover. Humans cannot hope to match the full might of the Jari Empire. Oh, I agree, Rhys said cheerfully. In a fair fight, we'd be annihilated. He reached for his coffee again, took a sip. Which is why we don't do fair fights. Later, in the privacy of the bridge, Kira confronted him. You just threatened one of the most powerful species in the Orion Arm. Rhys shrugged. Not a threat. An invitation. Invitation to what? To realize they've already lost, he said, checking a tactical readout. The moment they glassed those colonies, they stopped dealing with humans. Now they're dealing with me. Kira frowned. And who exactly are you? Rhys didn't answer immediately. He just gave her that same easy smile, the one that made enemies underestimate him right up until they stopped breathing. By the next morning, the Midnight Resolve was shadowing the Jari flagship as it pulled away from Haven's reach. The alien ship moved with arrogant grace, assuming the humans were simply following to negotiate. They weren't. Rhys's voice cut through the quiet hum of the bridge. Bring up Operation False Horizon. The holotable lit up, projecting a swirling network of sensor ghosts, falsified fleet movements, and decoy transmissions. To the Jari's intelligence systems, it would look like Earth had deployed half its navy to the sector overnight. They'll think they've been surrounded, Kira said, almost impressed. They'll think wrong, Rhys replied. That's the beauty of human warfare. We're not faster, stronger, or more advanced. But we can make you believe the sky is falling before breakfast. Hours later, Ambassador Threx hailed them in a clipped tone. This encirclement. It is unnecessary. Perhaps we could revisit terms. Rhys's eyes lit with mock surprise. Terms? Oh, Ambassador, I thought this was an extermination campaign. You're telling me you want to talk now? Threx's mandibles clicked rapidly. The Council is re-evaluating the situation. I bet they are, Rhys said, leaning closer to the console. His voice dropped to something cold and quiet. Here's my counteroffer. You're going to give me every commander who took part in the glassing. Alive. No trial. And you're going to pull your fleets back 2 sectors from human borders. That is unacceptable. Rhys's smile sharpened. Then I'll press the button. Silence. You're bluffing, Threx said at last. Rhys leaned back, sipping his coffee. Ambassador, when you've seen what I've seen, you stop bluffing. The channel cut. Kira exhaled. You think they'll give in? Rhys's gaze was fixed on the stars ahead. They will. They just don't know it yet. And when they do... He set down his mug. We'll be ready for the next step. Somewhere deep in the ship, the beacon continued to hum. Not armed. Not connected to any fleet. But the Jari didn't know that. And in war, Rhys thought, belief was a weapon sharper than any blade. The Clitherian command chamber had been built to intimidate. Black marble walls curved upward into a dome painted with scenes of their past conquests. Planets burning, fleets surrendering. The air was kept oppressively warm, thick with the musk of dominance pheromones. The Reaper walked in like he'd been invited to a Sunday barbecue. Calm, unhurried, his hands clasped loosely behind his back. His polished boots clicked once with each step, echoing just enough to make the alien guard's ears twitch. High Chancellor Vrashtek studied him from the central dais. The alien spines were spread wide in what the Cletharians considered an intimidation display. "You are the representative of Earth?" The Reaper smiled. "Representative, messenger, negotiator. Call me whatever fits your records best. I'm here to talk." Vrashtek's voice carried the smug weight of someone convinced they'd already won. "There is no talk. You will accept our terms. Earth will dismantle its fleet, withdraw from all contested systems, and offer reparations for interfering in our resource claims." The Reaper tilted his head slightly, as though considering a wine list. "Reparations? You mean, after you glassed 12 of our colonies?" "Necessary actions to secure stability," Vrashtek said without a blink. "Collateral casualties are unfortunate." The Reaper chuckled, a warm, almost friendly sound. "Collateral. Yes, I suppose that's one word for it. We humans have a different term, war crime, but let's not get bogged down in semantics." The chamber shifted uneasily. The guard's claws flexed. One aide muttered something in a low, anxious tone, but Vrashtek silenced him with a flick of his spines. "You have no leverage," Vrashtek said. "Your fleet is surrounded. Your colonies burn. We permit you here only to prevent needless bloodshed." "That's very generous," the Reaper said, smiling again. "But let's test that theory, about leverage. Humor me for a moment." He reached into his jacket. Instantly, 6 rifles locked on him, their muzzles glowing with charged plasma. The Reaper's hand emerged slowly, holding nothing but a small silver coin. He flipped it once, caught it, then placed it on the table between them. "That coin," he said conversationally, "is broadcasting a very short, very sharp signal. At this moment, it's waking up some very old friends of mine. You might call them sleeper agents." Vrashtek narrowed his eyes. "Bluff." The Reaper leaned forward slightly. "You think so? I respect that. But here's the tricky part about humans. We're the species that wrote the book on bluffing, and then taught the galaxy poker so we'd have someone to beat at it." The aides exchanged glances. One was already tapping discreetly at a wrist console. "Here's what's going to happen," the Reaper continued, tone still polite. "In the next hour, you'll start losing contact with your listening posts. Patrol fleets will stop answering calls. Your forward bases will suddenly have more ventilation than they're used to." Vrashtek laughed, though the sound was strained. "One man cannot." "Stop," the Reaper said softly. The single word, delivered without volume or heat, froze the chamber. "You're making the mistake every apex predator makes right before the other one bites." The lights flickered. Somewhere deep in the ship, alarms began to wail. The aide at the wrist console looked up, pale. "High Chancellor, long-range comm relays are gone." The Reaper's smile didn't widen, but his eyes lit just a fraction. "There it is. You'll be feeling that everywhere by now." Vrashtek tried to recover his composure. "You believe this will force us to negotiate?" "Oh no," the Reaper said. "This isn't about negotiation anymore. This is about setting the record straight. You glass 12 of ours, we don't come to the table empty-handed. We come with interest. And interest, Chancellor, compounds very quickly." The guards shifted nervously. Even among the Cletharians, known for their iron discipline, there was a scent in the air now: fear. The Reaper straightened, his voice light again. "But don't misunderstand. We don't enjoy this. Humans aren't cruel by default. We like building things, laughing, cooking absurdly large breakfasts on weekends. But when someone decides to make our homes glow in the dark, he shrugged. Well, then we stop being builders. Vrashtek's claws scraped the dais. What do you want? A fair trade, the Reaper said simply. Every system you took from us, return them. Every slave you took from other species, free them. You'll withdraw your fleets from human borders permanently, and in exchange, Earth will let you keep breathing. The Chancellor's spines lowered half an inch. And if we refuse? The Reaper's smile finally faded. Then I tell the coin to send one more signal, and your homeworld will never see another sunrise. No one in the chamber moved. Even the air seemed to pause. Vrashtek stared at him for a long moment, the realization dawning, this human wasn't bluffing. Worse, he was calm about it, as if erasing a civilization were no more trouble than canceling a dinner reservation. The Reaper tapped the coin once with a fingertip. A faint chime echoed from it. 60 minutes, Chancellor. Think of it as a grace period. He turned and walked toward the exit without another word. No guard dared block his path. Behind him, chaos erupted in hushed, frantic tones. Somewhere deep in the Cletharian fleet, systems were already falling silent. The smile was gone now. The storm was coming. The transport bay was silent except for the dull thrum of the carrier's engines. 20 soldiers stood in 2 neat rows, armored, armed, and waiting. The air smelled of oil and ozone, the kind of sharpness that clung to weapons before they were used. At the far end, a man walked in, no rank insignia, no medals, just plain black combat fatigues. His eyes were the kind that made people move out of the way without realizing they had. This was Reaper. The one the aliens whispered about in fractured, terrified code. Brief me, he said, voice steady, not loud but it carried. Lieutenant Cross stepped forward, datapad in hand. Target world, Kale 9. Population, 600 million Kroth. Estimated enemy military presence, 300,000 planetary guards, 30 orbital batteries, and ground-to-orbit artillery. Civilians have been armed since Earth's declaration. The Reaper didn't blink. And the human prisoners? Cross hesitated. 57 confirmed. Possibly more. They're in detention blocks near the capital. The enemy is threatening to execute them live on a system-wide broadcast if we enter orbit. Then, the Reaper said, sliding a mag pistol into his holster, we make sure the broadcast never airs. The landing ship dropped through the Kale 9 atmosphere like a blade through silk. Plasma bursts streaked past the hull, but the pilot's hands were steady. No evasive rolls, no wasted motion, just cold precision. In the troop bay, soldiers checked weapons one last time. They tried not to glance at the Reaper, but everyone could feel the quiet gravity around him. He wasn't tense. He wasn't bracing for impact. He was calculating. The ramp slammed down before the landing skids even touched dirt. Out. The Reaper was first onto the ground, rifle up. The Kale 9 skyline was a jagged wall of black steel towers and ash-colored smog. Somewhere in the distance, alarms began wailing. Squad 1, East Corridor. Squad 2, circle to the comms hub. I'm taking the center. Sir, with respect, that's suicide, Cross said over comms. It's not suicide, the Reaper replied. It's math. He moved fast through the shattered streets, each step deliberate. A squad of Kroth soldiers rounded a corner ahead, their insectoid limbs clattering on the pavement. They spotted him, opened fire. He didn't take cover. 3 shots, 3 bodies fell. Not a pause, not a wasted bullet. His weapon barely whispered in his hands, suppressed fire cutting them down before their nervous systems even processed the threat. The comm line crackled. Sir, orbital comms hub is secured. Blow it, the Reaper ordered. A second later, a shock wave rolled through the city. Above, the spindly towers of the comm relays folded inward like paper, their destruction silencing any hope of broadcasting executions. Inside the detention complex, 2 guards stood outside a reinforced door. The Reaper didn't give them time to raise weapons. One kick broke the first guard's knee backward, a single pistol round took the other in the throat. He was already inside before they hit the ground. Dozens of prisoners looked up from dim cells, human eyes wide, gaunt faces tightening in disbelief. One man stepped forward, voice shaking. Are you here for us?" "No," the Reaper said flatly, blowing the lock controls with a single burst of his sidearm. "I'm here to end a war. You're coming with me because I don't like leaving my own behind." Outside, the Croth response was escalating. Gunships roared overhead, dropping soldiers in armored pods. The streets lit up with plasma fire. Cross's voice came over comms. Urgent. "Extraction point compromised. Repeat, enemy has it locked down." The Reaper's answer was calm. "Then we take theirs." With freed prisoners in tow, he led the group through a labyrinth of alleys, ducking under collapsing walkways and through fire-scorched buildings. Every so often, he stopped, aimed, and another threat simply ceased to exist. When they reached the enemy's forward landing zone, chaos erupted. Croth soldiers scrambled for cover, but the Reaper's fire was surgical. He didn't suppress, he eliminated. In less than a minute, the pad was theirs. The evac shuttle arrived under a haze of smoke and burning metal. Soldiers and prisoners piled aboard. Cross leaned out the hatch. "Reaper, we're loaded, move." He didn't answer immediately. His gaze was fixed on the city, now fully awake, swarming with enemy forces. "Light it," he said into the comm. High above, orbital strikes answered. The ground shook as precision blasts tore through artillery batteries, supply depots, and the military command hub. The strikes didn't target civilian areas, just the war machine. But the message was clear: Earth had teeth, and it knew where to bite. Only then did he step onto the shuttle. As the ramp closed, Cross finally asked the question everyone had been avoiding. "Sir, why didn't they kill you when they had the chance?" "The Croth had to know you were here." The Reaper leaned back against the bulkhead, eyes half closed. "Because they're afraid of what happens if they miss." No one spoke for the rest of the ascent. The carrier's med bay was quiet that night. The rescued prisoners were sleeping, soldiers were tending wounds, and the hum of the ship filled the silence. The Reaper stood alone at the viewport, watching KL-9 shrink to a dim spark in the distance. He knew this wasn't the end. The Croth would regroup, rearm, and try again. But now, their war councils would have to reckon with something they couldn't measure: fear. Not of Earth's fleets, not of its weapons, but of one man who could walk into the heart of their world and leave with everything they tried to take. And he knew they would remember his name.